Um, okay, good morning, everyone. We're here at Center for Book Arts. I'm very happy to see you for our next session of Book Talk. And our guest today is Antoine Lefebvre, who is coming to us from Paris. Anton is a researcher, curator, and publisher, and he refers to his publishing practice as an artwork. One of his projects is called ARTZINES, which we will explore today, and it's an open access research project about zines made by artists. So Antoine has been traveling and performing this project at art fairs and other venues, and we'll hear about the evolution of the project and have a chance to generate a different zine for each participant. So if you would like to do that, we need you to set your browser to Firefox. And in the chat is the link for the platform. So at a certain point in this presentation, Antoine will start demonstrating how the platform works. And if you want to do it alongside, or if you want to do it after this presentation, feel free to do it however you wish. So we will take some questions after Antoine is finished, but I am delighted now to welcome Antoine to this session of Book Talk. So if everyone could be muted um, during the first part of the presentation, and then when Antoine starts with the platform, we'll ask you to answer the question in the chat. And the first person to answer will be what we put in to generate the zine. So without further ado, Antoine.
Well, thank you so much, Roni. Thank you, Camilo, and thank you to the Center for Book Arts to invite me to talk about this project. It started 10 years ago, so there's a lot to say about it. But I'll start by introducing myself and by talking about how I came to do this. So I'll share the screen. I didn't as most of my projects are online, I prefer the websites instead of slides. And you can see in the address bar the URLs. So if you want to visit the different project, you can do it. So this is so when I started studying art, I was pretty soon fascinated with the book form. One of my very first classes at the university was a class about artist books. And at the end of my master's degree, my professor invited me to apply for a doctoral scholarship. And so the project that I thought about for this scholarship was to work on publishing as an artistic practice. So I got the scholarship, but then in the beginning I was kind of embarrassed because I had no idea where to begin, and I had literally no money to publish, to pay a printer, to print books. I mean, publishing, as most of you know, I think, costs quite a lot of money. And so it was when I was listening to this presentation about conceptual art and the work of Lorenz Wiener that I thought about this project, which I later on called La Bibliothèque Fantastique, which is a project on which I published around 100 artist books that you can all download from this website, labibliothequefantastique.net. So they're very basic. They're PDFs, and you can download them like this, and they're very simple. They're like A5, which is the European equivalent of a half-letter pamphlet. So all of them are black and white so that everyone can print them themselves. And by doing so, I realized that I made myself close to the DIY mentality and ethos. On each page, instead of a PayPal button to buy the books, there is a DIY button that leads you to this page that explains how to make the publications. And so this is a practice-based PhD. So basically there's a dissertation that is to be written. And also the theoretical part relies or is in exchange with this practice. And my practice was this project. And this is what the dissertation looked like. This is the presentation art exhibition that I did during my PhD defense. And in the dissertation, so if you read French, you can download it on this page, it's here. And I've been contacted by a publisher who wants to translate it in English. So maybe it will happen soon. And so when I was writing about what it meant to me to be an artist publisher and what was the theoretical implication of this work, I came to realize that while I was familiar with the canonical definitions of artist books, in French, mostly it's the work of Admeglin Delcroix, which is authoritative on this. And but then I realized that what I was doing was slightly different because, so I forgot to show this. So this is what the installations of La Bibliothèque Fantastique look like. They were very simple. They were all black and white. They had this kind of rough aspect. They looked somehow like they were photocopied. And I realized that they looked like fanzines, and that they had this very simple quality that punk zines have. And because of that, in my dissertation, I gave a definition of artist zines, or ARTZINES. In French, I call them fanzines d'artistes. And as something that would be both an artwork in itself, like an artist book, but that would be made with a sort of DIY ethos, self-published, self-distributed, like zines are. I think that most of you are familiar with the term. And take a sec. At the end of my dissertation, of my PhD, so I finished the PhD 10 years ago. And I had the chance to do a year abroad during my PhD, which was in New York. And after my PhD, I had the opportunity to go back to New York and present my work at the New York Art Book Fair and in several exhibitions. And at that time, I met with someone which I called in the book the mystery man. Maybe later on you will discover who it is. And this person offered me to pay me to continue my research, the research that I initiated in my PhD. He was curious about what I called ARTZINES, and he felt that there was more than what I had written, and that I should pursue my research on this subject. So that's how the ARTZINES project was born. It was first a website, which was meant to show to this person what I was doing, but also as an open research project. So it was both accessible to him and to everyone online. And this website no longer exists. It has been replaced by the project that I'm going to show you later. And so on this was very much like a raw database of what I was encountering, of the people that I was meeting, of the zines that I was encountering. It was a sort of notebook, an open notebook of my research. I was continuing it. So there were different pages that were dedicated to people making zines, and also more widely to the people that I was meeting and talking to about zines. So yeah. And then the second step was to publish this, which is the ARTZINES zine series, which is a meta-zine or a zine about zines. And so there were 100 copies or maybe 200 at some point. The first one was about Paris because that's where I'm living. And then there was this one, which was a more like theoretical introduction to the project. One about Tokyo. This one is about Mark Fisher from Temporary Services. This one is about Montreal. And this one is a show and tell event that I organized in order to give a definition through examples of what art zines can be. So 10 people from different backgrounds were asked to present 10 zines made by artists. This one is about Berlin. This one is about California. And just like this one is about Brazil. Another show and tell which happened at Printed Matter, in which 10 people were asked to present 10 zines from New York, and that was what I used to create the New York issue of ARTZINES. And then there's one about G. Voucher from the anarcho-punk band Crass, and one about the Provo movement in Amsterdam. I'm showing you my website because most of what I do, as I was doing in La Bibliothèque Fantastique, can be downloaded for free. So most of them are sold out, but you can still access their content through my website. And then the project took a different turn because I lost the support of this mystery man. Before I did, he asked me to write a book project of what a book about artists' zines could look like. So that's the project that I sent him and published with his authorization. And then I met someone else. You know, life is about meeting people. And this person offered me to come to work in the university in the south of France, in Nîmes. And at first, she wanted me to teach a class in order to have the students in order to have the student design a traveling archive. And I was very happy because I love to make stuff. And with the students, we designed this traveling archive. So it folds back into the cases. And this archive is about web-to-print publications. So they are not artist books because I was in a design position in this university. What they have in common is that they were made using the tools that are usually used to make websites, but to make printed graphic design. So most of the graphic designers who created this publication, they used HTML and CSS code, just like when you make a website, but they used it to create printed graphic design. And I was familiar with this because from only one example that I had of this collective called Objet Papier, who were doing a very DIY project, which was like a magazine about the internet that you can download from this website. their website. So like if I make a copy for Roni, for example, then the magazine is generated each time. So the content doesn't move a lot, but the graphics will be different each time it is downloaded, because there is no, like in a PDF, there is no fixed quality to it, but it's more like a website, and which produces a unique version to be printed each time. So I loved their project. I had known it for a very long time, but I thought that, so in this issue, it was about like a kids magazine about internet culture. And so it's like 16 pages, 32, because those are pages that are folded in half. Then they created a second issue of this magazine in which people were asked to talk with this little chatbot. So I won't do it now, but the result is even more simple. It's only visual. From the answer that people give, it transforms an image. And then the zine made from this experience, they did it during a performance, was all the different image transformed by their platform. So I can just show you here. So it looked like this. And the other one looked like this. So when I was contacted by Lucille Haute to design the web-to-print library, and which we exhibited in several different places, I only knew this web-to-print project. And I was very surprised that a lot of the books that we had in the collection, it really didn't show that they were made using code. They look like any book that you could find in a bookshop. And, you know, because it's good design. Good designers don't show the tools that they use to make a book. And it's obvious that if the design is well made, it won't be particularly visible how it was made. But at that point, I asked myself, well, what is the interest to use this specific way of making design if it doesn't show, or if it could be made using the usual tools? There is also a political dimension to making graphic design this way, because today the Adobe softwares are completely hegemonic in the graphic design softwares. Like 99% of graphic designers who will design a book will make it using InDesign. And also, so the people who use code to make graphic design are also doing it for political reason, in a way to avoid this hegemony. But then I thought, well, what's the use of using this if it's to make something that you could make easily, more easily, using InDesign? And so I thought about a book that could only be made using web-to-print, from the example that I had of the Objet Papier collective. So I contacted them, and I made them an offer, a crazy offer. So I showed you the first two issues of their publication, which is called Print It. And I told them, well, we should do an issue together. We should do the third issue of Print It, because I have this project, ARTZINES, in which I published a lot of things, but there's still a lot of material that I haven't used. And we should make an issue of Printed that would be a crossover between ARTZINES and Printed. So during the process, I started to publish again the ARTZINES series. I made this issue which of all the transcript of all the interviews that I was making. I made this issue, which is about different projects that are meant for people to print themselves. This one is about a housewife, which is a lesbian zine. I mean, it's the zine of a lesbian club called Le Pulp. This one is a huge bibliography about zines. So it's 40 pages of only bibliography made by this by Isabeau Legendre for his PhD dissertation about zines. And so so those 4 issues, they were really like the work in progress of the project. So when I contacted them, I knew that it would take a lot of work. And basically, there are 4 people in the Objet Papier Collective, and they all have day jobs, and they make zines and experimental publications during weekends to have fun and meet people, to have the kind of fun that they can't really have in their day jobs. But I knew that as they're doing this for fun, it's always projects that are not that big. And because it was a huge project, we went to find some funding from the university where I was working, from the CNAP, which is the National Center for Visual Art in France. And after 3 years of hard work, we ended up with this. So on the left, you can see a moving list of all the people that I interviewed for the project. There's 88 of them. Actually, they became somehow the characters of my project. Some of them are not interviews, but it's not very important. And so what I told them, so just like the Printed, the 2 first issues of Printed, it's generative. So this is a digital version of me, you can see. And so just like in the second issue, we worked with this chatbot experience, and we wanted to have people being able to create their own version of the book. So each copy is completely unique, and it's made from the answer that you give. Just checking if I forgot something. Okay. So, hello, I'm Antoine. What's your name? So let's put, or we can just see in the chat who wants to answer.
So now, just answer the questions, and whoever answers first, we're going to put in.
Can you read me the answers, Roni?
Let's see. I just did that, but I don't see anybody.
There it is. Center for Book
Oh,
Arts.
I guess Center for Book Arts.
Center for Book Arts? Yeah, that works. Nice to meet you, Center for Book Arts, and welcome to ARTZINES Adventures. Together, we will explore the world of artists who make zines. Are you familiar with the term? So there are 2 answers. Are you talking about badly stapled photocopies? Or I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think we'll say badly stapled.
Yeah. So the story started when I met a mystery man who encouraged me to go on a quest, as I already told you. By the way, he also said he would cover travel expenses. Where do we go?
Anybody? Where
So
should
there, so there's France, Germany, Japan, the US, Brazil, that's Hong Kong, Canada, the Netherlands, and then the sphere, the globe is for the rest of the world.
Okay, globe.
Globe. In my quest, I had the chance to meet zine legends. They are artists who have been active since the 1970s. Which of them would you like to meet? So there's a zine guru, a gay icon, a Californian punk, an anarcho-punk legend, a graph zine mystery, an anonymous Chicano artist, a queer Chicano artist, an art band, a performance pioneer, an encyclopedia. And yeah, and there's a character like this if you don't want to choose. I think maybe I'll choose for everyone. The performance pioneer is Alison Knowles, which I had the chance to encounter one day, and and she sadly passed this week.
Okay.
There are as many zine styles as there are artists. I try to meet people representative of each of these communities. What kind of zines do you prefer? Queer, feminist, photo, graffiti, conceptual, personal, graphic, punk, collage, rezo, political, or
graffiti.
We're at a crossroads. Zines are a great way to connect people, but there are two very different ways to reach an audience. Would you consider yourself more of an introvert or an outgoing person?
Outgoing.
Outgoing. Nerds love zines. There are lots of articles and books written about the subject. Do you want to read something about sci-fi zines, about 1919 zines, about Italian zines, about North American artist zines, about zine materiality, giving an ethnographic point of view that created a controversy about zine studies or about the do-it-yourself ethos? Or do I choose for you?
That created a controversy.
Zines are usually quite humble objects. They usually look like ephemeral publications that could be discarded. What do you think? Are zines worth keeping? Yes, I'm a hoarder. I keep every piece of paper I ever touched. No, burn all that crap.
Yes.
Yes, I'm not surprised. And then, by the way, where will you read this book? So there are different emojis.
UFO.
UFO, so yeah, like that one. Okay. Is this not working?
Try another one, see, maybe.
It's not spectacular. Book. Yes. Tack. Yes, that's what we're looking for. So then it should look like this. And so one thing very important that I forgot to say is that there is absolutely no AI involved in this project. At first, we thought we'd call it generative ARTZINES, but then we didn't want to be associated with AI because it's all handwritten, hand-coded handwritten by me from the 88 interviews that I had. Then I worked with, I worked with, even if there are 4 people in the Objet Papier Collective, I worked mostly with Morgane Bartoli, who did all of the graphic design, and with Corentin Moussard, who hand-coded everything from scratch. So I think that's the only way on web-based project to create something uncommon is to really code it yourself. So that's what the book looked like. So when it's printed, it looks like this. And this first page is a half cover that goes like this, which contain all of the list of the people that you might encounter, but highlighted are the ones that were picked by you and also through the algorithm. And so this is Alison Knowles, we already knew. Amir Brito-Cador, who's a researcher and artist from Brazil. Chantal Garduño, who organizes Index Art Book Fair in Mexico. Knust, who make Rizozine from the Netherlands since the 90s, and Strange Store. And basically, what I wanted to do with this project is that I had a lot of interviews, and I wanted to offer people a way to navigate through this data that I had amassed. So depending on your answer, you will only get 5 interviews, but I inserted them in a narration that I wrote, which starts with how I met this mystery man, and then continues so the question will appear in different order. I don't know if you saw, because I did it very quickly, but when I did it again, it was the same question, but not in the same order. So the order is random. And each question is a different chapter. So it will be composed of an interview, and then of one of the interviews, depending on your answer. So this is when the interviews look like. So this is the first step in the narration about, different places. Then this one is about, this one is the question where I ask you to choose a style. And because I tagged each interview with different tags. So that's the graffiti. So that's a Strange Store. Then when I was asking you if zines should be kept, that's the chapter about archives and private collections. So the people that you're meeting there is either a librarian, a zine librarian, or a private collector of zines. So that's Amir Brito-Cador, who curated the artist publication collection in the university he works at. And the question about being introvert or outgoing is the chapter about distribution. So if you're an introvert, you'd rather drop your zines in a bookshop and have people sell them for you. Whereas if you're outgoing, you'll participate in a book fair. So as we chose outgoing, we get to meet someone who runs a book fair. So the people from Knust, I was very interested when I talked with them to ask them questions about how it happened before I knew this word. So in the 80s and 90s. So they talk about the book fairs that they would participate at that time. And then there's this chapter about nerds and zine studies will offer you a reading of a text or an article about zines. So the one that we chose is, oh, I didn't see it. Yeah, Funds in the DIY Revolution. So that's the Till Triggs book that created a controversy among zine makers when it was issued in 2010. And then there's the legend. So we chose Alison Knowles, which didn't really make zines, but as I was so happy to meet her, when I interviewed her, I had no idea what I would be doing with her interview. I just wanted to have an excuse to talk to her. So I'm glad I did. So that, and also I met her at the beginning of the project when I had just finished my dissertation about publishing as an artistic practice. And so I wanted to question her about Something Else Press. And so there are 5 people that if you meet, you end up in a dead end, each of them for a different reason. There are, for example, artists that I interviewed because they had made a really great zine, but they never made any other. There is one infamous bookshop owner in Berlin, Alexis Zavialov, who is known for never paying people who consign zines and books in his shop. That's Moto Books. So if you meet him, you lost. And there are other people that if you meet, you lost. You end up in a dead end. So when you end up in the dead end, the questions stop. So you might get a book that is shorter. And if you manage to go to every question without ending in a dead end, you will get one of the 2 regular end. So there's this one, the nerdy end, and there's another one which is a robot end. And this is the bibliography. Yes, and one last thing just to finish, but ARTZINES is also an archive, so it's just here. And I made this furniture in order to have it travel, but so far I haven't been able to do it yet. I hope to do it next year. In Paris, it will be easier. And so that's all the zines that I exchanged with the people that I interviewed, that I met during the whole process. And I think that's it. And I'll be happy to answer your questions. And also, I think that some of the people from Objet Papier are connected. So if you want them to answer a question, they would be happy to do so.
We have one question. Richard wants to know, are the images made into ASCII art on the fly as well?
Oh, that's a very specific question. No. No, they were made, I'm not sure if, they were made in advance with an ASCII generator. And so basically, I'll share my screen again. For several reasons. So an incredible thing that Morgat Morgan did for this project is that she designed the typeface, and which is called Snap It. She had done it for the previous issues of Print It. And when we were working on this huge issue, she made it a variable. So she designed a thin version and an extra bold version, and then people get to choose which variable they want in between those two. And the space, the font is a monospace font. So because in all of the design, I went to see the Objet Papier people because we share the same fascination for office supplies. And they created this font, which is a monospace font, because to them it pointed towards fonts that people use in terminal when they code, or to typewriters. And so the fact that the font is monospace guided the design a lot and took us towards ASCII art. And so for those of you who don't know, ASCII art is when you transform an image in order to make it only letters. And so it would have been possible, because it's only letters, it would have been possible to insert it in the code so that when people download, they download the letters, but it was a bit too complicated and no one would notice that we switched to images that just reproduce that.
I have two questions. I'm curious about some of the diagrams you had in your doctoral exhibition. They were kind of too small to really read. Can you talk about them a little bit?
Is that it?
No. Back further, there were like Venn diagram kind of things in your exhibition. Yeah. I mean, in that direction. Yeah. Before. Yeah. Back. I mean, they were, wall-mounted diagrams. Okay.
Yes, I lost the connection for a minute.
Yeah. I think it was before, a little bit before this one. Yeah, like this.
Like this, yeah.
Yes.
So, I'll just take a sip of water. So, La Bibliothèque Fantastique originally is a text by Michel Foucault, in which which was written as an afterword of Flaubert's Temptation of Saint Anthony, when it was published in Germany in 1967. And in this text, Michel Foucault writes about how Flaubert used his personal library in order to write The Temptation of Saint Anthony. So, and he writes about how it's a book made out of a multiplicity of books. And he calls this way of writing by Flaubert a phenomenon of a library. And so the whole project is inspired by a quote from this text. It's a rather short text and very, very beautiful. I'll try to find it. I can find it. So basically, when Saint Anthony has all of his temptations, in order to write them, Flaubert picked from all the books from his library, and mostly that's what researchers discovered later, among whom Foucault. Foucault discovered that he used mostly an encyclopedia of religion. And when Foucault published his text, he had these engravings put next to his text because he thought that it was the engravings that Flaubert was looking at when he was writing.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful text. I wish I could find I should have it here. No, I don't. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question from Edson who wants to know if these zines are only printed as desired or are any printed in quantity and mailed or distributed to outlets.
Yeah, that's what was difficult to us, because so we started showing the project 1 year ago. And so we did talks, book fairs, events. And so we bring a printer, it's those black and white, very simple printers. And we print the books during the book fairs, which is exhausting. I mean, participating in a book fair in a loud room, talking to people all day is already exhausting, but imagine that you need to make physically every book that you're selling. So luckily, there are several of us. And we already did like more than 12 events. And even if there's a really great reception, we have only printed 150, I think, up to date, when we made 500 covers. We made 500 covers not out of hubris, but because in order to get funding, we had to tell that we wouldn't be making at least 500 books. And then we realized that maybe it would be good for the project to also sell online. So you can buy it both from Objet Papier's website here and from mine. And if you buy it, you will have two options. So one thing I didn't tell is that the last question, from the last question depends which paper stock it's printed on, because we wanted to have a question that would really transform the aspect of the publication. Not that the other ones don't, but still. And so if you buy it, you have two options. You either get just blank paper stock, the cover, and this really nice binding rivets that Morgan found, and you print it yourself. Or you can just do the process that I showed you, save it as a PDF. So when you're here, you can either send it to your printer, but you can also choose to save it as a PDF. And you just hit save, and it will save you the PDF of your own version. And then you send us and we print it for you. And then afterwards, we realized that it would be nice also to have the project known in as many places as we could, to have already printed version that we could stock in bookshops. So we also did that. And in order to fill the part where the name is supposed to appear, I chose famous people. Like, for example, if you want one about about punk zines, it might be Johnny Rotten that's written on the first line, because when you enter your name, it prints here. So, yeah, I think that was the question.
Is this question about printed?
Antoine, there is one other question which maybe it's clearer to you than it is to me. The question is, why is it a unique version every time when printing from website versus PDF?
I think this was related to print it in the beginning.
So basically, in technical terms, when you generate a version, it's not a PDF. It appears as a preview like this, but to be technical, this is a PostScript. PostScript is the language that is that printers talk. And then if you don't want to print it right away, you can save it as a PDF, and your browser generates a PDF. But and so that's how all of web to print technique works, is that when you design on InDesign, you will export as a PDF. And when you create web to print, you will write code mostly. And then you will use your browser to generate the PDF that you will send to the printer. Should it be an office printer like mine, or should it be a commercial printer that you will send your book to?
Okay. Lisa wants to know, sorry, if the interviews exist in audio form for listening.
Yes, and that's what questions are for. It's for everything that I forgot to say. So if you go to artzines.info, there is this very, very simple page, which will lead you to the website to generate the book. But then there are two other links. There's the YouTube link, because most of them, the majority, are video interviews here. And the other link is towards my website to consult every issue of ARTZINES. But then, because it's a research project, when I was doing it, I felt that it was important that the main work, which is all of these interviews and transcript, could be accessible. So when you're on this page, there is so you can switch to French. I started doing everything in English because of this mystery man, and in order to have a wider audience. But then when I wanted to find funding for the project in France, it had to be in French. So I had to translate everything to French. So you can also generate the book in French. And there's this about page here, which tells about what the project is about. But here you have a secret black box on which you can access all of the interviews and all of the scans. Because when everything was finished and we started communicating on the project, I had a better idea for the title. You know, it's it happens sometime. And I thought that the project should be called The Perfect Art Book Fair, because it conveyed this idea that when you're going to a book fair, there will be 100 exhibitors. You won't have time to talk in depth with everyone, but you might have 5 or 6 meaningful conversation. And so the book functions like this. Like, you're not going to read 88 of the interviews, but this interactive part is a way to guide you through all this database and to offer you a unique journey, like anyone would do in a book fair. Like, anyone would have a different experience and would come out of the book fair having noted different things. So, but still, I wanted all of the data to be accessible. So that's all of the interviews. The one thing that is not accessible through, that is only accessible through generating the book is my own writing, and which are the narrative slash theoretical parts.
I'm curious if the questions for the interviews were similar. I mean, did you ask, or did you tailor them for each person?
Yeah, I have no idea if I'm a good or terrible interviewer. And I went through different phases because the interviews were made in a very wide span of time. At first, so because they were video interviews, I had this stupid idea that people won't look a video that would be more than a few minutes online. And so I kept them very short, like this one, for example, 5 minutes. But then sometimes I would continue with an audio recording. And then when I would talk to interesting people, I felt stupid, like asking them only 3 questions, and which were always the same, and maybe not very interesting questions. And so I would start with this and just continue. And those 3 questions that I asked to everyone was, I like to have people introduce themselves in their own terms. So it's always interesting to see, the difference from when someone is introduced by someone else, or how they would introduce themselves. And then I asked this question that I sometimes find stupid and sometimes I think is the most important, which is, why do you do that? Why do you make zines? Is there a specific reason? Which is kind of blunt and very open and maybe unsettling at some point. And some people have no idea why they do that. They just do. Some people have a hidden reason, which is always interesting. And yeah.
I think you promised us that you were going to tell us who the mystery man was.
I think the mystery man just turned his video on. Hello.
My video has been on since the beginning.
Oh, I didn't see you.
And I think it was a brilliant presentation, Antoine, of your career and the incredible work you did about both artist books in the Bibliothèque Fantastique, and then with zines in the project we worked on together for so long. But I'm curious, you're moving very interestingly and very successfully in a direction that kind of moves toward a different version of the zine, right? A sort of generative interaction between a script written by you and the person engaging with you, and resulting in a sort of print, for lack of a better word, print on demand physical object. And I guess my overriding question is, as someone who knows more about this than maybe anyone, what do you think this is the future? Do you think we will move from the pre-made, cut and paste, Xerox sort of expression of an artist's or beginning artist's view of his world or artistic practice into one that has this sort of interactive quality where you're interacting with a code that's been written and you come out with something that's sort of personal and highly specific? Is that a stupid question?
No, it's perfect. Thank you so much, Phil. Yes, so the PhD that I did was in visual art, and it's a practice-based PhD. And even though my jury had pushed me towards theoretical questions, and they were more interested in the theoretical part than in the publishing part. And so, but I was only interested from the beginning in what pushes the boundaries of what we consider to be a book. And I, at some point, I found this in artist books. I was interested in how artists question what it meant to make a book, and what it meant to author a book. And sometimes they were questioning very formally what a book can be. And then I came to be interested in zines. And through the process of this research, I tried to unveil what fascinated me in zine culture. And spoiler alert, one of my conclusions in the book is that what I find fascinating in the zines are not really the zines, they're the people who make them, and how the zines come sometimes to be just an excuse to meet people, to meet each other off screen during book fairs. I'm fascinated by the fact that since I started making zines, so that was 15 years ago, there are more and more book fair and zines fair each month. It's really, and with a renewed young crowd that is fascinated by this format. So I think that it's very interesting. And then more recently, as I was in a design position at the university, I was fascinated by how these graphic designers who make web to print challenge what we expect from a book. Because what they do is that they create books that are hybrid between what we usually find online through a web page. One of the things that surprised me when we were making the archive is that very, very few of these books, when they were made using web technologies, have an online presence. One of them is very interesting because it's a catalog of a museum, and they asked the designer to create a website and a book with the same content. So it's a very interesting project, but that's not very common. Like a lot of them don't have online presence. Like they only created the design using code, but they are not websites. And yeah, what fascinated me in this was that it offered a new paradigm for what a book can be. Basically, the web paradigm of organizing information is the scrolling. So it's like this endless page that is just like a rotulus. You know, in the first book that were roles, there were I don't remember the other one, but the rotulus were the one that would unroll vertically. And then there's this paradigm of the page that came after. And what people who do web to print did is that they reconciled the two. They thought that if you have a huge amount of information in a rotulus on a roll, you can just split it into different pages. And so it's a way of working the information that interested me and that allowed me to create a book that would, I hope, push the boundaries of what we expect from a book. And to answer your question, in the end, the format doesn't, I don't think, tells us a lot about zines and how zines are made. It contains different nods toward do-it-yourself, but I don't consider this to be a zine because it's zines are usually spontaneous and simple and easy to make and accessible, when this is really long and complicated to make and requires certain skills. But I was interested in doing this format to talk about zines, because I wanted to show this unique experience that I was talking about, like going to a book fair, but in a book. I don't know if that answers your question, Phil.
Let me jump in because there are two more questions. One is, what book fairs would you recommend to participate in for a small artist publisher? And which book fairs have been the best experiences for you?
Wow. The New York Art Book Fair is a must. Now it's harder to get in, I think. One thing that always surprised me, as I was saying, is that there are more and more young people in this crowd. Like, it's a public that doesn't age. Each year there are younger people creating book fairs, creating zine fairs. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but there's a lot of small book fairs who are in France and in Europe, who are not trying to be the huge New York Art Book Fair, or to be, the biggest book fair in the biggest city, like Miss Reed or in Berlin, for example, but who sometimes happen in smaller city when there will be only, dozens of exhibitors. And also the organizer take care of the exhibitors, and that's something that I want to see more in book fairs. Participating in a book fair, if it's not in your city, is very expensive. If you're selling $10 zines, you'll never make your money back. And if the table is free, if they will make lunch for everyone, then it's still better. If there is a cozy place for exhibitor just to hang out when in a more calm setting, it's always interesting. I would say that my favorite book fair is Books Are Bridges in Rotterdam. It's organized by this space run by Karin de Jong, which is called a Print Room. And it's not really a book fair because it's a publishing summit. So she has some of the participants come 2 days before the book fair. Then we have talks among us. Some of them are sometimes public, but mostly it's people who are talking about their trade together for 2 or 3 days before the book fair. And then the book fair happens on the Sunday, and it's only 5 hours. It's in this lovely place, which are shared gardens. And there is this community house where sometimes there is this community breakfast that is served. And so the breakfast is served in this place. And then we clear the tables and just set up our publications on it. And it's in the summer. It's beautiful, and it's only 5 hours. And it's as good as if it was 2 exhausting days in a very crowded place.
Another question. I think you told us the first 2 questions of the 3 that you were originally asking the people that you interviewed. So the question is, what was the third question?
Why do you make zine? Yeah, but you have it here. Who are you? Where are you based? Why do you make zines? To say what? What type of content can people find in your zine? That would be the third one.
Okay.
And I realized, it's always when you finish that you realize stuff. That, like, there's this book about Italian zines that I like a lot, which was made by Daphne Boggeri, who runs the Sprint Milano book fair. And when she writes the book, she she will write a small text on each of these 100 Italian zines that she selected, and each time she will talk about how it was made, like physically, like the zines that she talks about cover a wide span, like from the 70s to until today, and like, were they handmade? Was there a computer involved? What kind of, how were the graphics made? How was the typography made? And then the second focus that she has each time is how is it distributed? Because it's very important for publishing. Like, what were the users at that time? Were they mail order through a regular mail? Is it through Instagram if it's something more recent? Like for more historical stuff, there is no talk about book fairs. So were the fanzines distributed in concerts or just through hand to hand? So yeah, I wish I asked more question about, you know, the material details, because I was very interested in the content. I come from a conceptual art background, so I'm always interested in, you know, what I'm learning. Instead, maybe more, I'm not that visual of a person. So yeah, I asked about the content, but yeah, I would have been interested in asking more questions about how they were made and distributed.
There's another question about how you developed your practice of being a researcher publisher. And it seems from what you've described that it grew, you know, as you developed the project. Is that accurate? Or was there something else that helped you develop it?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, I'm going to read it again. Could you speak about how you developed your practice of being a researcher publisher, publishing as research?
Yes, yes. Yeah. So one of the things that interested me as a researcher was to find different outlets to distribute what I was finding and to have a more direct connection to potential readers. And that's not usually how researchers do stuff. Like, they would be more interested in publishing in something that is high visibility, that is prestigious for their careers. So I wouldn't advise to self-publish your own work. It's not maybe the best way, but it was also for me a political way of distributing research. Like today there is this hegemony of these paywall platforms that will forbid access to a wide part of the research that is made. Aaron Swartz would have been 39 years old last year, and if he had not committed suicide because of FBI harassment for doing basically what those AI corporate assholes are doing every day, meaning downloading every article made in order to make it available for free. So I strongly believe that information should be accessible, that research should be accessible, especially when it's made like in France with public money, and when it's behind a paywall, it's not normal that someone else is making money out of what was made with the public money. So yeah, that's something that is very important to me. I don't know if it shows, but there is in all of my project a strong copyleft dimension. Everything is available for you to download, but also to transform and distribute freely. And yeah, there is a project which is this journal which I created. So it's dysfunction-journal.net. And so it's a journal that is like a newspaper like this, and which is made to, so we published 10 issues so far. The content is far from artist publishing, but it's meant to present a different way to distribute research. And I think there's an artist that was published in Dysfunction Journal, Anthony Kwame Harrison, who works at Virginia, who's a sociologist at Virginia Tech, who published the 6th issue of Dysfunction. So it's yeah, it's very important for me to create new ways of distributing research.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions. Let's see. Yeah, I think we might have gotten to the end. This was so fascinating. Thank you very much. People are writing in how much they enjoyed it. And to all the people that attended, if this is the kind of programming that you like, please consider donating to our annual appeal, because as you know, the government has not been kind to nonprofits. So any help that you would like to give would be appreciated. We will have another book talk, I believe, at the beginning of the year. It will be Christian Patterson, a very interesting photographer who also does artist books. So please look out for that. And if you look in the chat, then you will see the link for our annual appeal. But thank you so much, Antoine. This was fascinating. And the best of luck with everything you're doing.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I wish it could have been live in New York, but maybe some other time.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you, Antoine.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending. See you.
Bye-bye.